Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Here we are with a high-profile guest. He's a captain of the Reds and he's at the Wallabies setup at the moment. Liam Wright, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, going really good, really well.
Amazing, amazing. Well, before we touch on your injury, which I know is a massive sort of setback and such a shame for all viewers, I just want to sort of take it back to sort of 2017. So you just came out of the NRC and then got onto the Wallaby sort of development squad. What was that transition like? Because obviously from the you skipped the Super Rugby stage.
Yeah, yeah, it was really weird. We were about to head to Fiji to play the Drua over there, and I was in the kitchen and I got an email from Michael Checker saying that we wanted me to come down to the Barbarians camp the next week. I was so taken aback because, like, as you said, I hadn't done any of the steps really. I wasn't signed at all. I'd done a few sessions with the Reds main squad, just filling in for injuries and people away and that. But yeah, in my head, that's not really how it all played out. So I was a bit surprised. But yeah, it was really cool and got to learn a bit and probably see a bit. Probably the most I took out of it was trying to see how professional setups work and how professional you've got to be to sort of get to that level, which I tried to take into my first preseason then in 2018. So I felt probably a little bit out of place, to be honest. Like, I probably wasn't physically ready at all. I was still a skinny little runt. So yeah, but it was really cool experience, and yeah, then got to know a few of the boys who I've got to know a lot better through the last few years in the setup.
That's awesome. Must have been like a completely inspiring moment as well.
Yeah, yeah, it was, and especially got to play that game against the Barbars, which was really cool because it wasn't named, and then Rory Arnold ended up having to have knee surgery. So just doing the lineouts in sort of the captain's run, Check just came over, shook my hand, and said, "Congrats, mate, you're in." I was, it was
Sure.
awesome. So yeah.
Well, we want to talk about this year mainly because you've done so much. So I guess last year sort of marked the beginning of like a new look Wallabies, new set of players and coaching setup and everything. How did that compare to the Wallabies of before and now? So what are the changes and yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. I think it was just like a fresh start, like a fresh pair of eyes. All new coaches, a lot of new guys that had come through. I guess after the World Cup, you sort of get that where a lot of guys sort of move off for a bit. So it just seemed really fresh, like a lot of new ideas coming through, new different ways of looking at, I guess, what our culture piece would be and how we wanted to define the team. And then, yeah, it was really good to see a lot of the guys that we'd sort of played through the year be the ones that were coming in. There weren't too many that were getting pulled from like overseas or anything. Like, I don't think we used the ghetto law at all. So yeah, it was really good to see guys that are being rewarded that had good super seasons in Australia. And yeah, I thought Renz and his coaching staff had some just really unique ways of looking at it. They were very well prepared. Like, any sort of questions you fired at them about their counter attack structure or anything, they seem to have the answers for it, which was really good in what you look for in a coach. So yeah, it was a cool time. Yeah.
Did you have any sort of stories of Dave Rennie's sort of interesting coaching styles or anything new he brought in?
He sort of did a lot of stuff at the start. We did a lot of singing. We learnt hymns and songs in Tongan, Fijian, Samoan. We tried some country ones from Country Australia, and those didn't take off as much. It was probably a bit easier doing all the Fijian hymns. That was our favourite one. We did some like skipping session where him and Matty Taylor had this massive skipping rope, and you had to get in groups of like 12 and go through like one person, then two, then three, then four, and keep sort of cycling through like that. And it was pretty weird thing at the time, but like, it was sort of to teach you how to communicate with each other and solve the problems on the run. And so yeah, it's pretty unique, and he's got a few different things like that which were pretty interesting.
Yeah. And another thing that was notable from last year was the fixture list. I mean, you played the All Blacks 4 times and Argentina twice. What was it like having such a competitive fixture list? And apart from that bye week, you sort of had a competitive like week every week.
Yeah, it was. It was intense, and especially those first 4 weeks against the All Blacks and that. There was just a lot you had to learn really quick on the go. I think, the last 2 weeks in those Argentinian games, I would have liked it. We sort of got used to having a game every weekend, and the guys playing lots of minutes were a bit battered and bruised, but as you'd expect from a lot of Test footy in a short amount of time. But we enjoyed the game weeks a lot more than the bye weeks, because then we just got flogged with sort of preseason style stuff, and I think it would have been really cool to verse South Africa as well in those two bye weeks if they could have come along. But it was just intense, and I think it really made you look at like the value of Test rugby, and that if you're just 1 or 2% off in a few key areas, which we were, suddenly we're looking at only 1 win as opposed to could have turned 3 draws into 4 wins. So it kind of gave you a pretty good glimpse of how good you need to be.
You talk about being 1 or 2% things, like the small issues making the big difference. Obviously, the Pumas last year, they were such a, not the surprise package, but they came out a lot more heavy hitters than they were predicted to be. Was this something you guys saw or knew about? Was it a bit of a surprise to you as well?
No, we expected them to be good. We probably naively thought that they were going to maybe get tired or fade away a bit, like just from, I know we felt tired at points, just being in sort of isolation for a while, and they were in isolation for a lot longer than us and being on camp for a long time. But we expected them to come out firing, and we knew they'd do that. They're a really proud nation. They had a strong coach. Mario's done some work with us in the past, and he's a really good man and a good coach. And they sort of just stuck to what they knew, and I think that's where they did really well. Like, they didn't try to play too crazy in parts. I know against us, they slowed it down a lot, put down box kicks, and then just tried to smash us in the tackle, turn it over, kick it back, and then took the 3 points when it was on offer. And scoreboard pressure hurts you. So they were pretty in that way.
You talk about isolation. How much do you think that affected the standard of rugby?
I think it did in the end. Like I know in New Zealand it was a bit cooler as well, so you didn't feel the effects of the Aussie heat and that. Those last few games you're playing in December in Australia, and it's hot and it's sweaty, and I think that definitely makes a bit of a difference in that. There's probably a few more errors, a few more knock-ons in that. But I think we had enough time outside of isolation, and again, the boys worked hard in that COVID break between the seasons to keep themselves fit and maintained, and Rens and the coaches checked in with us a lot through Zoom and stuff like that to make sure that we were going to be prepared for that season come the end of it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I want to transition to the Reds now, and I guess so when you first joined at the Reds, I guess they're not in a good place, you could say. They just they're starting their rebuild phase with Brad Thorne coming in as the head coach. What was it like when you first joined, and how do you compare the Reds of then to the Reds of today, who are obviously just shy of winning the Super Rugby AU competition last year?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was just about sort of starting fresh. And I think it sort of couldn't be rushed, and that's probably where we've come undone and at the Reds in the last little while, is that we sort of look to build success but not sustain success. And that's a big thing that we talked about at the organisation, is that we don't want to have 1 year where we make the playoffs and then 1 year where we don't. Like, we want to turn it sort of into the Crusaders sort of thing, where there's no doubt they're going to make the playoffs. They're a successful team, and so they'll do that in a good organisation, and that's what we wanted to do. Whereas you look at 2011, they had that awesome success, but then it was followed by a lull period of 5-6 years where we weren't at our best. And so I think we knew it would take a while, and all those years had something to play in it. Like 2018, when I started, we had a lot of sort of the old heads to sort of guide us young guys. And so while we didn't get the results, I think we got 6 wins. It was really important we had guys, John O'Lance, Kane Douglas, Benny Lucas, guys like that, Aidan Toa, who played a really important role in sort of passing on knowledge, and plus it probably took a bit of taking some things out of close losses where in the future we'll hopefully turn those losses into wins. And so it was a really important year for us to to get some experience, the young guys that would come through in the next few years to get some experience there, learn off those guys, just leech off them. And as well, they still held a really high standard. And I think you talked to Thorny, like guys like Jono and Dougie, they played a really important role in what we were trying to build and keeping us accountable and teaching us as well.
And then I guess a couple of years later, you became the Reds captain at such a young age, which is awesome. What sort of changes have you had to make personally, sort of on and off the pitch? If you had to make any changes?
Again, I haven't had to make too many because it's kind of come through that whole squad. A lot of us have come through together, and so I've been coached under Thorny since 2016 with the 20s and NRC and everything, and a lot of the guys have. So we know what he values, and that a lot of that's hard work, toughness, and being men of character. So a lot of us haven't had to change too much. It's probably more about bringing up our details and our standard of accountability. I think probably games we've lost is because we've let little things slip. If you look to that game we had in Canberra last year in 2020, round 5 against the Brumbies, where we lost to a penalty goal on full time. We won a penalty with 40 seconds to go, kicked a line out, lost the line out, then they kick it back to us, and then we lose the ball again. Like, it's little things like that, and details, and being smarter and closing our games through being accountable to each other and doing our job. That's really where I've mainly had to try and focus. But again, the guys have been great, and I've been lucky. I've had guys like Henry Spate, James O'Connor. I'm not kidding myself that I'm going to try and know everything or do everything. So I'm not afraid to lean on them and let them run some things, and they've been really, really helpful.
What's a sort of particular message, like one message that you try to give off to the other players in the squad as the captain?
I think my sort of message with that is that that I'm going to lead from the front. I'm not I don't have to tell you all this talk about, I'm not going to say, hey mate, let's go and do extras, but I'm not going to do them. If I'm saying something, I'm going to be doing it too. I've got to live my words through my actions. And that's sort of something I try to do, lead by example in a way. And I think the more you do that and earn their respect through doing the tough stuff and, being one of the last ones out there, being the first ones in, trying to look at film, help people out wherever you can, be diligent with your physios, be on time for things, then the less I have to say, then hopefully it becomes just a way of things which are doing. And that's, a lot of it has been. I haven't had to, change a lot, because that's how a lot of our guys are and have come through that pathway. And that's sort of how you get to this level, I guess, by being professional like that. And a lot of it's just that, trying to be genuine and do what I say.
Yep. And I guess last year, one of the effects of the virus was the, unfortunate departure of the trio of Isaac Rodder, Harry Hockings, and Isaac Lucas. Sorry about that. How did the trio sorry, I can't get my words out. How did the trio's departure affect the squad? And so how did you try and minimize this change or effect?
Yeah, it was a difficult time, but I think we were all really good mates with those guys. So, it was unfortunate, and it probably left us lacking in a few areas, but, we didn't, villainize them or anything. And, we still talk to them, a fair bit, and check in how they're going and that. So, we didn't hate them or feel like a whole lot of angst towards them or anything. It probably, left us lacking, especially in probably the locks department and the line-out department, sort of stuff like that. But we chose to try and look at it as more of a positive. Like, we got to bring in another 4 or 5 guys from the Premier Rugby pathway and through our academy and stuff like that. Ryan Smith is hoping to debut this weekend. He came in sort of to fill that gap at lock, and we just looked at it as an opportunity to sort of grow together as a group. We felt that after that, everyone that was in Queensland really, really wanted to be there for the right reasons and to win and to work hard and things like that. So we used it to galvanise us a bit and bring us closer together. And I think we did get a lot tighter after that. And especially with our staff and not just our coaches, but like our manager, our guys who do our GPS, our analysts. I think we all became really close after that because we knew everyone was in on the struggle, pay cuts and long hours and bubble and things like that. So I think that really brought us together. And then we chose to look at it as a positive in that we'd get to bring new guys into our system, bring them up to scratch on our culture and things like that. And sort of look at it glass half full instead of half empty.
Just talking about that, obviously, I'm just looking at your lineup for this weekend's game. You've got one youngster making his debut. Is it 3 more on the bench? How exciting is it that you've got so many young players all coming through at the same time? Just like a new era for the Reds.
Yeah, it is. And that's sort of what we've been able to do this year, and based off last year's, a decent season last year, and that we got 11 or 12 Wallabies guys, if you include Sully, and that meant that those guys missed a lot of the December portion, but then those young guys were coming through and got a whole dedicated preseason just to themselves. So, guys like Mac Reilly, he'll come through soon. Big Illa on the bench, one of our Fijian flyers from Ballymore. It's come through the West program, come from Fiji not long ago. We got Richie, who's been at East for a long time. Tried his trade in the Major League Rugby as well, and then COVID brought him home. He had a great season and has been able to come through our pathway again as well. So, again, it's just sort of Queensland's got a really good rugby pathway and a good nursery there, and we probably don't do enough to sort of keep them. And I think that's what Thorny's big legacy will be as well, and that he's really trusted his young players and brought them through. And now that young-ish players like myself aren't the young players anymore, those other guys coming through, and we're just trying to make a sort of culture whereby as soon as someone comes in, or would be it for one session or a season or starting games like this, that they know what we're about, that they know our culture, and that it's up to us to bring them up to scratch on our systems like that, so that they'll do really well and push for debuts, because the better that they train and push ourselves, then our standard goes up, our intensity goes up, and we should get better results.
And I guess you mentioned Suliasi, and I don't want to talk about anything that happened recently, but how has this sort of transition come from moving to league to union? Like, obviously with a sort of complete talent and raw ability, is there any moments in training where you've just been like, wow? Yeah,
plenty. Sully's a really good fella. He's a really good man. He played a lot of union before he sort of went to league. I think him and Nella played together in Auckland under 18s or something like that. So he has played a lot of union before, and that's sort of what you forget. Like, he's not a fresh leaguey coming across converting. He's almost a union player that went to league that's now coming back. So he's still finding his feet and getting used to probably more so the back three sort of player things. But I've noticed we're doing a lot more sort of cross kicks, and there's this giant Fijian somehow plucking them out of the air the whole time. So he's pretty amazing in that regard. His air skills are second to none.
Awesome. Alrighty, guys, it's that time again. Time to pay for the pints.
Today's podcast has been brought to you by our mates over at Team Blazers. A big shout out to them, the Great British Blaze Company, kidding you out for every match day social. Check them out now.
So I guess, I want to talk some more of on a personal note. And I mentioned at the start they unfortunately got injury, which is a real shame, especially at the start of the season. How are you sort of coping with injury setbacks as an individual?
Yeah, I'm going okay. I'm pretty okay with injuries and that. Like, you come to accept that they happen and that. And I do believe that almost all the time you come back from an injury better. Like, whether you get to work on putting on size, which is something I've always had to sort of do a bit, working on power, things like that. So I'm pretty comfortable that I know I'm going to come back better in some regard. The disappointing one is the timing of it. I've been lucky in the past. Like, I've only had one other real major injury, and that was tore my hammy off the bone in end of 2018. But that was sort of during the NRC period, and then my recovery was I would be back for round one. The difference this time is that I'm missing round one and probably up to about round 8 or 9 as well, which is the tough thing to sort of get your head around. But again, we're sort of looking at it glass half full and I think in the long run for the team, for me to be able to step back, hopefully get some new voices out there, other guys get a chance to sort of step forward and lead more in certain regards, which a lot of guys started to do in the preseason when we weren't there, is going to be a positive for us in the long run. And just got to find different ways to contribute with the leadership off the field. And so again, that'll be an interesting challenge for me.
Obviously, in your absence, James O'Connor stepping up to the plate as being captain. Even though you're obviously not on that, he's so experienced. Are you still helping him, or is he just, you're leaving him to his own devices? He knows what he needs to do as captain.
Yeah, on the field, I leave him completely to his own devices, sort of thing. He'll be fine there. He's got a wealth of experience, and he's a smart player as well. I mean, he's a natural leader anyway, and he's our 10, he's our quarterback. So, he guides us around a lot in terms of where we're going to play and things like that. I just talk to the ref every now and then and make some small decisions. So he'll be fine. He'll be really good. The main thing for me is try to take as much as off his plate on off-field stuff, so he can just focus on things like that. He's quite a spiritual bloke and things like that. So the more I can take off his plate, let him focus on being himself and just doing what he does on the field, and that'll be best for us.
And if I'm correct, you've got your first game of the season later today for you, isn't it? Against the Tars, Yeah. That's awesome.
Hours, so I'm excited for that.
What should we expect from the Reds this year, and so perhaps that game?
I think we should expect some really good stuff. It's going to be exciting. You look at our squad, we've got some really exciting backline players. I mean, you've got Hunter, Geordie, Filippo, who just can do some crazy, crazy stuff. You got Jock, who's just silky at the fullback and probably brings a bit of calmness and simplicity as well to the backline, where he can just run good lines or put good kicks back. And you got Rabs leading us around, and then you got Tate as well at 9, who is trying to guide our forwards around. So our backline's silky. It's smooth. I think if we can get our set piece right in the forwards, give them as much quality ball, then that'll be really good for us. There's a chance it'll rain tonight in Brizzy. It's sort of your typical Brizzy monsoon sort of weather at the moment. It's hot, sticky, and wet. And so in which case it'll bring our forwards much more into the play. And you look there, we've got Fraser and Wilso in the back row. We've got Scott Young, who's a good mate of mine, and he'll be really good at number 6. He's super physical. He's got some of the heaviest shoulders in the pack, so he'll be looking to whack blokes, and he's just come back from an injury too, so I'm sure he's got a bit of pent-up anger there that he wants to let out. And again, it's just our whole pack. I think Murphy's playing his 50th tonight, cap for Queensland, and so he'll guide him around well too. And I think we just got a really solid team, and I think our depth this year is going to be a major benefit for us. I think the guys that have had that extra preseason, that extra year of experience, will be exciting to see, and sort of like those debuts that we were talking about before, will come on and hopefully make a big impact. And again, speaking of impact, you got Big Nella on the bench. He'll come on, and after sitting there for 40 minutes, I'm sure he'll be ready to whack some blokes as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, so you just mentioned it. So you had the dilemma between Hunter Paisami and Jordan Pataya, and Hunter obviously just came out last year pretty much out of nowhere. What was that like for him?
Yeah, he had a breakout year, and I think a lot of people knew he could do it. He was had a few issues in Melbourne, which he then, to his credit, brushed off and came and plied his trade in Queensland for a year, just playing solely club rugby. And then, when he came in, he took his opportunity. You can't look at anyone and say, they've taken their opportunity more than him. An injury to Geordie, ends up starting, ends up killing it, and then ends up starting for the Wallabies as well. Like, he was fantastic. He's just a little ball of energy, and he just runs into hard places. He puts his body on the line, and he's amazing how he does that. And then you look at our backline scenario as well, that Hunter played 12 for the Wallabies and he's playing 13 for us because Hamish Stewart's had such a good season last year and an awesome preseason again that he's just forced our hand and we've had to pick him. And he's awesome as well. He brings some skillful touches. He used to play number 7 at school, so he backs himself around the breakdown, and he's a tough fella as well. So some pretty cool things happening there.
That's awesome. Well, we've got one. So we asked one question to everyone, and that's your favorite moment in your career. So what would yours be?
Yeah, mine's pretty easy. So I'm originally from South Africa, from Durban. My parents and my sister and I moved here when I was 7, but all our other families still back over there, and a lot of them are in Durban and some of them are in Cape Town. So my favourite memory in my career was in 2019. We went over to Durban, played the Sharks, and I don't think we'd won there since 2004. And we ended up winning that day. It was 21-14. I had a pretty good game and got man of the match. But to finish the match, like, the Sharks were attacking our line and they needed a try to tie it up. And I ended up getting the pilfer, which sort of finished the game and sealed it. And it was just awesome, like, sort of coming up with the ball, looking over to my family. They were all wearing shirts that said Wrongers number 7, which was a bit cringe, but good from them. And it was just such an awesome day. Like, first time I've ever played in front of family like that over there. And it was awesome. Easily my favourite moment.
Yeah, fair enough. That sounds unbelievable. I mean, family's the root of everything in all sports, so that's obviously meant a lot to you. Liam, well, thank you so much for giving up your time to come speak to us, especially on a game day. That's a massive privilege for us, and we wish the Reds best of luck tonight and also for the rest of the season. But thanks for giving up time, Matt and I have loved that. It's been really good.
No worries. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. You're doing a really good show.
Cheers. Thank you very much. And cheers everyone else for tuning in again this week. Hopefully another week of lockdown ticks in England. I'm obviously a bit jealous of Australia. Looks like it's getting a bit better over there. But hopefully it's all easy up soon. Stay safe and keep away from each other. Cheers, guys.